The sister Korin is also quite sense-oriented, though in a different way than Agnes. Um, Karin's played by Ingrid Thulin, and she tends to have very sharp-edged, literally, sense memories. For instance, there is a very harrowing part of the film where, to really get at her husband, who's a real bastard, when she was having dinner with him, she was disgusted by the sound of his eating. He's eating fish with a fork, and the way in which he eats it is very almost mechanical, and the sounds he's making are just disgusting her and the audience. It is also a thing in human nature. There's actually a name for it, which I forget, that many of us have a sort of disgust when we hear the sounds of eating. It's true, of course, some people eat in a rather loud, disgusting way, but for some people who are quite sensitive to this, it could be the normal, very normal sounds of eating. You're eating properly, you're not that loud, but the person listening to it is disgusted by it. Korin really has this, and of course this is quite sensory. And the tension becomes too much in her, and she squeezes her glass of red wine, and it cracks, and the red wine goes all over the table. Nobody cleans it up, nobody even acknowledges it, but the broken glass is all over the table. And she picks up a shard of that glass. It's a very interesting shard, the way the points, it's like devil's horns on it. Small piece of glass. But she picks that up and she fingers it and she puts it away. She wraps it up and she puts it away. Later, when they go to bed and they're getting ready for bed, the husband is not looking at her, but she takes that piece of glass out and she cuts herself in her private parts. And she's bleeding all over the sheets. And she actually almost smiles, almost like it's masochistic. And what it really is, of course, is that she's going to present herself for sex to her husband. And she sort of smiles at him. And then he gets up as though to come to the bed, and then she reveals the bloody sheet, and she smears her face with the blood and is smiling lasciviously at him. It's a very powerful, disturbing scene. And it is her fascination with the sharpness of the glass, of the way the light hits the glass, of everything about it, and of the taste of the blood in her mouth. All of this is quite sensory. And it seems as though her sensory world is filled with these kind of sensations, probably or possibly because her normal existence is so repressed by her husband, by the culture she's in, and probably kind of boring, that sensorially she needs to be moved by things that are sharp, that are strong, that are even painful in order to feel alive. That's my interpretation. It could be quite different as the actress approached all that. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's real for the actor. And if it's real for the actor, the sensory aspects of it, it's not intellectual, it's not academic, it's not pre-planned, it's happening in the moment. It's a fascination with something of the senses that makes a person feel things physically and emotionally, even spiritually. And then turning to Liv Ullmann's character Maria, she's very hedonistic. She likes to think she's beautiful, and she's concerned with her makeup and her hair and what she's wearing, and she flirts outrageously with any man around, as she does with the doctor who comes in to take care of her sick sister. She cheats on her husband. She has a lot of affairs. And there's a scene actually where her husband, and we're not quite sure if it's a dream or not, but she sees him stab himself in the chest with a knife, and he's all bloody. He doesn't die, but it seems to be that he's a substantial man. He's rich, he's accomplished, but he feels basically suicidal, and we get the implication it's because of his wife's behavior, and that she doesn't really love him, that she just uses him. And Maria's has a reaction of course, shock, but also almost a perverse sort of enjoyment of seeing her husband like that, with the blood and everything. Is it the same as Korin's fascination with blood and sharp edges? Possibly. But she seems to have a sensory appetite for everything, for sexuality, for food, she's very alive in her body. This is no bad thing necessarily, but if you're playing a character who has, a kind of a hunger for an immediate physical gratification and a sense of enjoyment of pleasure in the moment, or even feeling like they've manipulated somebody, like they won, they tricked somebody, gives a feeling of pleasure sensorially through the whole body. So Maria's a person who's very much of the body. She expresses herself physically with almost everything. And so to approach the part that way, of paying a lot of attention to what your senses are telling you, and as I said before, though Maria, like Korin, is a bit fascinated by blood, specifically when her husband stabs himself, she's also afraid of it. It repulses her, it scares her. So though she's fascinated for a couple seconds, she then runs. She can't handle it, and she can't help him. She's basically a coward. She's a master manipulator, and very and it seems like she's going to throw up. Korin brings a basin for her to throw up in, and Anna is there helping her. Maria is a couple of rooms away, backed up against a wall. She can't handle it. She can't deal with it. It's disgusting to her, and she really doesn't want to deal with it at all. And that's her MO. That's the way she is in any situation that becomes too uncomfortable, particularly with physical pain or injury. And yet she's this person who loves anything physical in the body and in the senses that feels good, and hates anything that feels bad. That's not so different than most of us, but she has no courage in dealing with anything either in between or bad. So that's her sensory world. That's part of it. There's much more to it, of course, as with any human being.